The line for the gondola stretched all the way down the switchback trail, and by the time we reached the front, only 2 seats were left. Julian politely negotiated with the tourist ahead of him. "Excuse me, the person next to you is my friend. She's always been afraid of heights, and today's her first time riding a gondola. She's here to make a wish before her grad school exams. Would you mind swapping seats with me? I'd like to sit next to her in case she gets scared." The tourist glanced at Chloe Wren's slightly flushed cheeks and laughed good-naturedly. "Sure thing, son. That's exactly how I won my wife over back in the day." Then his eyes slid past Julian to me, standing behind them. "Is she with you too as well?" Julian, already settled into the cable car, seemed to remember he had a girlfriend at all. He glanced back at me through the open door, indifferent. "Don't know her." I stood there frozen, watching the small cabin ascend toward the peak. 7 years. I'd followed in their wake like a shadow, chasing their laughter as they ran ahead, chasing the same express train they took, chasing art films I didn't even like. This time, the road ahead was dark, and I found, quite suddenly, that I no longer had the nerve to keep following. I turned around. Maybe the way down would be easier. Staff pulled the red caution tape across the entrance. The loudspeaker announced this was the last gondola of the day. Julian had known that. That's why he'd rushed to swap seats for Chloe. I stood helplessly in the lodge, scrolling through the group chat. 3 of us in it, but only 2 people in the photos. Made it to the summit safe. "Wendy, hurry up and join us." Someone insisted on standing in that ridiculous line for a lucky charm. Couldn't drag him away. A man about to turn 30 still believes in this stuff. So immature. I'd never date a husband like that. In the photo, Julian stood at the back of a long line, oddly out of place among the tourists around him. Before we'd left, I'd mentioned in the chat that the charms sold at this overlook, for love, for luck, were supposed to be especially powerful. A good omen, I'd said. I'd begged him to come with me. Julian had replied, coldly, boring. And now here he was, waiting in line of his own accord. A few minutes later, Chloe sent a video. "Got it. Wendy, this one's for you." A green charm engraved with the words career advancement. In the corner of the video, something flashed in Chloe's hand, gone in an instant. But I'd seen it clearly enough. It was the one I'd actually wanted. The love charm. I couldn't put a name to what I felt. On one side, a boyfriend of 4 years. On the other, a best friend of 8. And somehow, no one was actually listening to me. I turned my phone screen off, found a corner of the lodge, and sat down to wait for them to come back down the mountain. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, jolting me awake. The driver's furious voice exploded through the speaker. "What the hell is wrong with you people? You said 11 o'clock sharp. Look at the time. You know I'm a driver, not your personal chauffeur, right? I've got another booking tomorrow morning. If this makes me late, are you going to cover it?" One accusation after another slammed into my drowsy brain. I checked the time. It was already past midnight. I apologized to the driver over and over, then scrambled to call Chloe. No answer. I tried Julian again and again. On the 9th call, he finally picked up. "Where are you two? Still at the summit? Did something happen?" A light laugh echoed from the other end. "Told you I'd win. Pay up, pay up." Julian's voice came through, helpless. "Chloe bet you'd come looking for us if we hid. We're behind the sunrise overlook. Come find us." "Sunrise? Hide and seek?" I asked, dazed. "Didn't we agree not to stay for the sunrise? You have the express train tomorrow, and I have work." "Wendy." Julian cut me off, his voice gone cold. "We're all finally out here together. Can you not ruin it?" My throat tightened like a stone was lodged there. I pressed my nails into my thigh, forced my voice to hold steady. "Julian, I didn't make the last gondola," he said, "then figure it out yourself." Laughter and chatter swirled in the background. None of it was for me. The old me would have exploded. Screamed, made a scene. This time I just looked around the empty lodge and felt something go hollow inside my chest too. What was there left to figure out? I wasn't like Chloe, clever, driven, willing to grind through a top university application in secret rather than admit defeat to her own family. Going home to teach in a small town had been a peaceful, contented life. The only person I had ever fought that hard for was Julian. The dazzling boy I'd fallen for as a teenager had kept me getting back up, again and again, chasing his shadow. But every time I caught up, he only seemed to get farther away. This road toward his heart had always been a dead end. I closed my eyes and listened to my own voice, very quiet. Julian, let's break up. Fireworks exploded outside, drowning out my words. There was silence on the other end for a long moment before I realized Julian had already hung up. I tried sending a message. A red exclamation mark popped up. I stumbled to my feet, heading toward the shuttle stop, and crashed to the ground. The furious driver saw me, hair wild, knees bloody, and the cigarette dropped from his mouth. He didn't complain again. Just stepped on the gas, smooth and quick. His eyes kept flicking to me in the rearview mirror. Guess I was a little hard on you back there. Kids these days. The warm glow of the town slowly came into view. The light washed over my face, and I finally remembered how to breathe. Turns out the mountain I'd climbed with everything I had was so easy to come down. I'd spent my whole life chasing after their pace. Chloe, bright and vivid. Julian, clean-cut and effortlessly outstanding. Wherever they went, they were the center of attention, the teacher's favorites. Back in school, he and Chloe used to skip class to go have fun, laughing at me from the top of the wall for being too scared to climb over. The assistant principal came running at the noise and made an example of me, dragging me up in front of the whole school at the next assembly. Later, stubborn as ever, I'd applied to an obscure major at Ashworth University, just to chase the express train that would let me travel with Julian. But he'd turned around and found new hobbies with Chloe at school instead: rock climbing, BMX, art house films. I stayed up all night under my covers watching every film they mentioned, just so I could join their conversations the next day. But when I finally spoke up, Chloe just smiled and blinked. Wow, AI sure is useful. Wendy really got lucky with the timing. Julian had laughed too, a flicker of relief crossing his face like an awkward moment had passed. The three of us, and it was my presence that made things awkward. Back at my rented room, I couldn't sleep, so I started tidying up. Before I knew it, dawn had come. I picked up my phone and saw Chloe had posted something new. Cold night. At least someone's here to suffer through it with me. The sunrise at the summit, gold light wrapped around two blurred silhouettes. And in the last photo, a selfie from the bus, a shoulder crept into the frame. Julian's. I liked the post. Then I picked up the framed photo by my bed. Our high school graduation photo. I'd been short, stuck in the front row, while the two of them got pushed forward by the crowd behind them. When I tried to shrink back out of embarrassment, hands landed on my shoulders from both sides. Chloe had thrown an arm around my neck, affectionate. Come on, stay, we're friends, aren't we? Julian had given a cold little in response. That summer, right after graduation, Julian had kissed me. I thought it was years of unrequited love finally paying off. Later I learned he'd just been in the middle of a fight with Chloe. One moment of spite, and I got shoved into the middle of their two-person world. Even this group chat, I'd even made it myself, grabbed Julian's phone while I was drunk and created it. But every time I shared something funny or brought up some topic, no one ever responded. Chloe could post a photo of the weather and get all the emotional support I worked so hard to offer, plus a comment from Julian on top of it. And he was supposed to be my boyfriend. I wiped my dry, stinging eyes, threw the photo in the trash, left the group chat. Just as I was heading for the door, I heard two sets of footsteps in the hallway. Wendy can be stubborn, but she's not a bad person. If you don't apologize to her, I'm not talking to you. Julian sighed. She used to hide it so well. If I'd known her temper was this bad, I never would have gotten with her in the first place. The door opened. Our eyes met. Chloe was working hard to signal something with her eyes. Julian, stiff and reluctant, walked over and set a coffee and a breakfast sandwich on the table. The hazelnut latte you like. Then he pulled a pink charm out of his pocket. Got this for you. Don't be upset anymore. I reached past it for the unopened green one instead and pulled out my phone. Thanks. How much do I owe you? I'll send it over. The living room went dead silent. Julian blinked, startled, brow furrowing over his handsome face. Who pissed you off now? Chloe, sensing the mood, wrapped her arms around mine and gave it a gentle shake. Some guys are so clueless. Here, take this and go spend it all. Show him who's boss. A bank card was pressed into my palm. Chloe winked at me, voice full of mock resentment. This idiot already bought the $800 premium charm last night and wanted to buy another one. I heroically stopped him. He's all talk when it comes to romance. Doesn't know the first thing about making a girl happy. Not worth getting mad over. Take the card, use it however you want. Buy whatever you want until you feel better. Julian crossed his arms, disapproving, but didn't stop her. The cold edge of the card dug into my palm. I set it down on the table and picked up the trash bag by the door instead. I'm not upset. I need to get to work. Excuse me. At school, teachers exchanged morning greetings. A young teacher had bought too much breakfast and enthusiastically offered me a cup. Miss Hale, want a hazelnut latte? Good for the skin. Another teacher, grading papers nearby, laughed. She's allergic to hazelnuts. Drink it yourself. I gave a small smile. Colleagues I'd known less than a year already knew about my allergy. Julian never remembered. The star student who'd fast-tracked into grad school at Ashworth, with a memory sharp enough to remember anything, he just didn't care enough to use it. After my morning classes, I got a text. From Julian. Train got rescheduled. Let's grab lunch. Pick you up at your school. I didn't reply. When I walked out the gate, though, a car was parked at the curb. The window rolled down, revealing that familiar, handsome face. He nodded toward the passenger seat. Get in. 10 minutes later. The man who'd clearly regretted knowing me that morning acted as though nothing had happened. He ran through the menu with practiced ease. I'll start with these, anything you want to add. Chloe's in the final stretch before her exams, under a lot of stress. Don't bring up this morning again. After we eat, go apologize to her. Settle her nerves. I took the menu. My hand didn't move to write anything down. He could notice Chloe's moods in an instant. But he still hadn't noticed I'd left the group chat. The day I passed the civil service exam, I almost sprouted wings to share the news with him. He was traveling with Chloe, trying to cheer her up after she failed the first time. That celebration dinner was supposed to be ours. It never happened. I'd waited until now for it. The joy had long since worn flat. Might as well let this be our last dignified meal together. The fondue pot arrived, steaming, sides laid out around it. Julian dropped a piece of beef into my bowl, then hesitated, like he wanted to say something. The class reunion's coming up this week. Are you free? We could visit the old teachers too. His phone rang, sharp and urgent. Chloe's voice came through, shaking, asking for help. Julian, I was trying to get to the public library and I think I'm lost. It's really out of the way here. He was already grabbing his jacket before she finished. Stay where you are, don't move. I'm coming. Halfway out, he seemed to remember I was still there. I'll come back after I drop her home. I didn't answer. By the time the restaurant closed, he still hadn't come back. I went back to school for evening study hall. An older teacher on duty with me chatted, laughing, offering to set me up with someone. My hand paused over the papers I was grading. I let the corner of my mouth lift. Sure, I'll meet him sometime. This time, I really wasn't going to wait around anymore. Chloe registered for her grad school exams, and Julian took time off to help her estimate scores and pick schools. When I got home, they were sitting at the kitchen table, and my things had been shoved carelessly onto the floor. I said nothing. I gathered up my books and went back to my room. A friend request popped up on my phone. Hi, I'm Gavin. Are you free this Saturday? The older teacher had mentioned her son had spent the last few years running a small business, a little hard to read but good at heart. Hearing that familiar setup speech, I felt myself wanting to back out, but it seemed rude to go back on it now. I'd just find some excuse to leave early once the date started. After finishing grading, I went to refill my water bottle. Only Julian was left in the living room. He held up his phone, the notification lit on the screen, his face darkening. What is this supposed to mean? I glanced at it, flat. We're already broken up. Might as well dissolve the group chat. Julian let out a sudden, cold huff of laughter. So you did hear what I said that morning. Fine, I'll just say it plainly then. You don't have Chloe's looks. This kind of move doesn't suit you. It just makes me more disgusted. Think it over. Breaking up means nothing to me either way. But with your prospects as they are, do you really think you'll find better than me? The chill in his voice yanked me straight back 7 years, to the Julian who'd once been a stranger to me. Back then, in every crowd, in every patch of sunlight, I'd been the one craning my neck to watch him, eager to please. I had been jealous of Chloe, secretly, more than once. But I'd also worked twice as hard to be good to her out of guilt afterward. When she failed her first application and needed somewhere to stay, I'd gritted my teeth and rented a 2-bedroom place. The day she moved in, I'd taken my new electric scooter to pick her up and gotten caught in a sudden downpour. Julian had called me the instant he heard. Wendy, what the hell did you do? How can you be so careless? Chloe doesn't know anyone in this town. If something happened to her, could you live with that? I'd taken a cab out that night to buy Chloe medicine and ended up sick with a fever myself for days afterward. Julian's only comment had been flat and unbothered. It's fine. She's tough, she'll bounce back. Chloe, his female friend, made him frantic. I, his own girlfriend, only warranted a few dismissive words. Tough. She'll bounce back. So that was what he'd always thought of me. The anxious knot in my chest finally settled, though I couldn't say what exactly I felt in its place. Julian was right. I'd never find anyone better than him in this life. Being with him had always been more than I deserved. But I just didn't want to spend 3 more hours alone in an empty lodge, waiting for no one. Julian gave me until Saturday to answer. I'd never planned to answer him at all. That Saturday, I did my makeup carefully and put on something new. On my way out, I ran into him and Chloe. The two of them looked like they were heading out too. Chloe's expression flickered, evasive, when she saw me. Julian looked smugly certain of himself. Figured you'd been watching the group chat after all. Come with us, you can sit in the back. I was about to answer when my phone buzzed. I'm downstairs. I smiled at the two of them. No need. The teachers never liked me much back then anyway. I doubt they want to see me. You two go ahead. Have fun. Julian's eyes dropped to my bare legs and shoulders, gone cold. You're not coming to the reunion? Then where exactly are you going, dressed like that? That's not really your business. A muscle twitched under Julian's eye, his expression darkening. Chloe asked, worried. Wendy, it's getting late. Is someone coming with you? Stay safe. I opened my mouth to answer when there was a knock at the door. My phone buzzed again at the same moment. The light in your hallway's out. Didn't want you walking up alone. I'm right outside your door. Julian had been staying at my place the past few days. He walked straight over and pulled the door open himself. He caught sight of the man standing outside and narrowed his eyes, something icy sliding into the look he turned on me. I hadn't quite processed it either. My colleague had mentioned Gavin was 30. I had pictured someone older, worn down by middle age. Instead, there wasn't a trace of that in him. Sharp, clean features, a well-tailored suit that hinted at the shape of real muscle underneath. Standing face to face with Julian, who himself stood over 6 feet. Gavin still had half a head on him, and the air around him pressed in like weight. Hi, I'm looking for Miss Hale. Gavin greeted him politely, his eyes flicking briefly toward Chloe and me. My mind, unbidden, dredged up all the things Julian had said before. He wasn't the first to say things like that. If it weren't for Chloe, who'd even know who Wendy Hale is? People should have some self-awareness. Trailing after Chloe all the time just makes you look pathetic by comparison. She's just background scenery. That's all she's good for. Why else would anyone want to hang out with her? Even covering my ears, the words still found their way through the cracks, relentless. Even Julian, of all people, the one closest to me, had said the same thing. Heat crept up my face, humiliation prickling under my skin, and I was steeling myself to introduce myself when Gavin smiled and produced a bouquet of roses from behind his back. He walked straight toward me, the tips of his ears faintly red, like he was gathering his nerve. My mother talks about you often, Miss Hale. Meeting you today, you really are something else. Coming from anyone else, that might have sounded like sarcasm. but he was standing close enough that I could hear his heart pounding. There was something bright and restless in his eyes that I couldn't quite read. I took the roses. When our fingers brushed, Gavin pulled his hand back like he'd been shocked. "Let's go." The whole time, he hadn't so much as glanced at the other two people in the room. Not until he noticed Julian blocking the doorway, deliberate and unmoving, did his eyebrows finally draw down. The look he gave Julian was sharp enough to steal the air from the room. Julian didn't look at him. His eyes stayed locked on me cold. "You've really outdone yourself. Hiring a model to play boyfriend just to spite me now? Wendy, if you walk out that door with him today, don't ever think about getting back together with me." Under the weight of 3 sets of eyes, I walked toward Julian. His smug smile was just forming. I hugged the bouquet to my chest and turned, calling out to Gavin instead. "What are you waiting for? Didn't you say the hallway's dangerous? Weren't you here to walk me down?" Gavin strode over to join me without hesitation. Julian's smile froze on his face. He stood rooted where he was. He watched us head down the stairs together, watched the taillights disappear into the night. In front of other people, Gavin slipped effortlessly back into that composed, mature persona, a completely different man from the one I'd first met. I kept waiting for him to say something. But through dinner, through a walk downtown afterward, he never brought it up. His restraint left me second-guessing myself all over again. Had that whole scene at the door just been him being polite, trying not to embarrass me in front of Julian? But then he walked me home and texted goodnight, and I found myself unsure all over again. Lying in bed scrolling my phone, I saw the reunion photos a classmate had posted. Julian and Chloe were still the center of every shot, though his gaze looked distracted, somewhere else entirely. I didn't think much of it. Chloe would only be staying with me for another 3 months at most. Once she left, I'd move out anyway. There were better rental options closer to school. I could even look into staff housing. No reason to stay here any longer. After a shower, I fell asleep the moment I hit the pillow. No dreams. The next morning, toast between my teeth as I headed downstairs, I spotted 2 people standing outside the building entrance. Chloe's makeup was streaked from crying, her eyes red as she stared at Julian. "She already dumped you. Why can't it be me? That thing about studying abroad, years ago, that was a joke." I felt guilty after that fight. That's the only reason I put up with Wendy getting between us all this time. "Julian, we grew up together. We know each other inside and out. We like all the same things, and you're telling me you fell for someone else? Why?" I ducked behind a tree, the toast in my mouth suddenly tasteless. So that was it. Chloe had feelings for Julian. He told me not to upset her, and then went and did exactly that himself. Not much of a man, honestly. I didn't stay to hear the rest. I slipped out the back way to work, then swapped shifts to cover evening study hall so I wouldn't have to go home right away. Right around then, Gavin called. His voice was hoarse. "Miss Hale, you asleep?" I couldn't help a small laugh. "Just finished evening study hall." "Something wrong, Mr. Cole?" "No, just wanted to hear your voice." The sudden, bold sweetness of it caught me completely off guard. I fumbled the key at my door twice before I got it in, laughing helplessly against the wall, not sure how to respond. "Did that make you uncomfortable?" "Sorry. Long day, I wasn't thinking before I spoke." "It's fine, really." I just hadn't expected the gap between his public and private self to be this wide. Suddenly, the door swung open from the inside. Julian stood in the doorway, his expression dark enough to drip. I jumped. "Julian? You're still here." He snatched the phone out of my hand, glanced at the screen, and hung up with a cold laugh. "Barely broke up with me and already lined up the next one?" I frowned. "I don't want to fight. You're the one who said Chloe's under exam pressure and shouldn't be bothered." I thought that was good advice. "Or did you want to take it back?" His voice went flat. "She already flew home this afternoon." I froze, shoved past him, and ran to the room. Chloe's things were gone, every trace of her, wiped clean, like she'd never been there at all. I'd always been quiet, and after starting college, my whole world had narrowed down to Julian. I barely had any friends of my own. But I'd never forget high school freshman orientation, Chloe pretending to faint just to drag me, the one with low blood sugar, to get juice. The other girls used to compare me to her unkindly. But she'd throw an arm around me for photos anyway and say, "We're friends, aren't we?" All those years I'd poured into her, willingly none of it had ever had anything to do with Julian. Was it because he'd turned her down? Why leave without a word? If things had blown up with her family, where would she even go? My thoughts spiraled into knots. Shaking, I dialed her number. Just a dead, endless busy signal. She'd blocked me. I hadn't realized until now that I mattered less to her than Julian. Even when Julian had hurt me, it had never cut this deep. By the time I came back to myself, my face was already wet. Julian looked like he wanted to say something, but watching me dial Chloe's number over and over, he couldn't hold it in. She never picks up when she's angry. You're wasting your energy. Even I don't know where she went. Something white, hot burned through the last of my restraint. Then how could you just let her leave? You kept saying she wasn't safe alone here, and you just stood there and watched her walk out the door with a suitcase? The airport's far from here. She doesn't know a soul out there. What if something happens to her? Julian blinked, taken aback. Then his face darkened too. And whose fault do you think this is? If you hadn't been carrying on for days, would she have pushed me into answering those questions? You were the one jealous of her all this time. Now I finally turned her down, and you're the one throwing a fit? I stopped listening. I called everyone I could think of. No one had heard from Chloe. At 3 a.m, Gavin sent me a photo. Chloe, wrapped in a blanket, asleep on a bench at the airport. He asked, "Is this your friend? I can have my assistant arrange somewhere for her to stay." I typed back, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you. I'm on my way there now." When Chloe saw me arrive, something uneasy flickered across her face. She looked exhausted, clearly hadn't slept well either. I didn't ask her anything. I got straight to the point. "Once your exams are done, I'll be moving out. Somewhere closer to school. Chloe, I've always thought of you as my best friend. That's never had anything to do with anyone else. Whatever's going on, let's just get through your exams first. That matters more." Chloe looked at me, her expression complicated, and gave a soft, tired laugh. "Wendy, do you think I'm pathetic? Not just homeless, dumped by the guy I've known for 8 years too." I shook my head. "I've never thought that. Not once." Her eyes went red. She was quiet for a long moment before slowly standing and pulling me into a hug. "Wendy, I don't think we can be friends after this. So, this is my last apology. I'm sorry about that day. I shouldn't have left you stranded in that lodge on purpose. It must have been so cold, spending the night alone. Don't forgive me." I didn't hug her back. My nose stung. After that, Chloe shut herself in her room until it was time to fly back to her hometown for the exam. During that stretch of time, to my surprise, Julian never once came looking for me. Once she'd gone, I started planning my own move and mentioned it in passing to Gavin. "I have a place in Millbrook. If you don't mind, you could move in there for now. We can sort out rent later." I looked over the address he sent. Close to school, easy commute. I said yes. On moving day, Gavin came in person to help. These past weeks, he'd made a point of taking me out every week. And once, during a break, he'd flown us somewhere together. My first time ever in first class. I had a vague sense that whatever small business his mother kept referring to wasn't something could casually match. I kept looking for the right moment to talk to him about it honestly. The old walk-up building had no elevator. He shrugged off his jacket, and the shirt underneath pulled taut across his chest with the effort. To celebrate the new place, I took him to the best restaurant in town, and afterward there was a Ferris wheel waiting outside. While Gavin went to settle the bill, I ran into someone I knew. 3 months apart, and Julian had gotten noticeably thinner, the circles under his eyes darker. I meant to pretend I hadn't seen him, but he walked straight toward me and said my name, clear and steady. "Wendy." I greeted him with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. The shadow between his brows only deepened. "Last time, it was Chloe who wouldn't let me come see you. The moment she left, I flew back right away. I've already cut things off with her. Have you been doing okay? If having me blocked is what makes things easier for you, you can add me back whenever you're ready. Whatever you want." I stepped back, unhurried, out of reach of his hand. I thought I made myself clear enough. Julian's hand hung in the air. Something raw flickered through his hollowed eyes. His voice came out rough. Is this because I never bought you that love charm? Wendy, I've never believed in that stuff. We're almost 30. We should be planning for a real life, a family. Superstitions like that never mattered to me. That's the only reason I brushed it off. Once I graduate, I'll qualify for relocation housing through my job. If you still want a charm, we could go back up together, buy it, and hang it in our place. Would that be all right? I shook my head, thought it over, and decided not to mention that I'd already moved. And actually, thanks to him buying the career charm instead, I just won first place in a teaching competition. My career luck really had turned out well. But none of that felt like something I wanted to share with him anymore. 7 years, I'd shared these small joys with him more times than I could count, hoping each one might be enough to thaw him. I'd always come away disappointed. I saw Gavin walking toward us in the distance and said, politely, anything else? If not, I have plans with a friend. Gavin's gaze swept past him. He draped his jacket over my shoulders and caught my hand in his. Let's go. It'll be cold in a minute. My heart skipped warmth, spreading steadily up from where our hands were joined, settling deep into my bones. I didn't pull away. We reached the Ferris wheel, and an attendant stopped us politely. Are the three of you together? I'm sorry, but this ride only has 2 seats left. The third would have to wait for the next one. I startled, turning to see Julian right behind us, watching the two of us in silence. Gavin gave our joined hands a slow, deliberate squeeze. We're together. The night wind picked up. He helped me into the car, his dark eyes catching the starlight. Once the wheel started turning, I realized ours was the only occupied car. Every other one around us was empty. The attendant just said, I arranged it. Gavin's expression was full of quiet warmth. This moment matters. I didn't want anyone interrupting it. The carriage rose slowly toward the top. My pulse picked up with it, my nerves sparking one after another. He wasn't about to. Ms. Hale, will you be my girlfriend? A velvet box opened. A gold bracelet lay inside, still and gleaming. Embarrassment shot straight to the top of my head. My tongue tied itself in knots, and all I could manage was a flustered nod. Wendy Hale, what are you even thinking right now? Gavin and I moved in together as a couple. His company wasn't based in Millbrook, but he flew back every week to see me. Even when he was working late, he'd video call just to watch me fall asleep. Every worry I'd ever had turned out to be unfounded. Love can carry you through anything. I finally understood what that meant. But he was such a gentleman it bordered on frustrating. We hadn't even kissed yet. When I mentioned it to his mother, she laughed so hard she could barely speak. His people skills he gets from me, goes after what he wants without hesitation. But when it comes to romance, he's exactly like his father. Old-fashioned. Then she leaned in and whispered something in my ear that left me blushing scarlet, like a boiled shrimp. The students finished their finals, and the year was winding down. That afternoon, I was walking home with fish and chicken for dinner, planning to cook for Gavin, when I spotted a figure standing in the snow. The oversized winter coat made Julian look thin, almost gaunt. I'd heard his advisor had been arrested for academic misconduct. His graduation was in jeopardy now too. You moved. His voice was flat, carrying a kind of hollow weariness. His eyes dropped to the groceries in my hands, and something bitter, self-mocking, curved at the corner of his mouth. We've known each other 8 years. From students to now. You spent 8 years liking me. And it's only been 3 months and you've already moved on to someone else? I thought he wanted to pick another fight and was already bracing myself to snap back until I caught the sudden red rimming his eyes. So what happens to me now? I've had a lot of time to think these past few days. The truth is, I never actually loved Chloe. It was always you. Chloe and I, we're cut from the same cloth. You're different from us. I loved that spark in you. I just never knew how to say it. When I first told you how I felt, I really was only looking for something casual. But somewhere along the way, every plan I made for my life had you in it. 8 years, I got used to you being there without even noticing. That day I watched you walk off with another man. My chest hurt so badly I thought it might actually break. I never want to feel that again. Wendy, is there really no chance for us anymore? The snow began to fall again. My heart felt calmer than it ever had. Julian, do you remember what you said? What? That breaking up meant nothing to you either way. I watched the light in his eyes freeze over, watched him crumple like a mountain giving way. As I passed him, I said one last thing. I hope you don't turn into someone even you can't stand. I got home, pushed the door open, and warmth rushed out to meet me. Gavin stood at the stove in an apron, ladling soup out of a pot. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. Meeting ended early, so I came home. Didn't want to spoil the surprise. 3 simple dishes. Fish. Chicken. The same things I'd bought. It had been the meal I'd planned to test his taste with. He'd thought I wanted them tonight and made them all himself. 1,000 things crowded up in my throat at once. I sniffed and wrapped my arms around him from behind. Clatter. The ladle had slipped from Gavin's hand. The back of his neck went red. What's wrong? My mom says I should bring you home to meet her this Christmas. I already said yes for you. Gavin froze completely, the easy composure he wore like armor in every boardroom cracking apart. For a moment, he looked like nothing so much as a boy caught off guard. He cleared his throat and turned, pulling me into his arms. Are you sure? There's no such thing as knowing the future. I wasn't a fortune teller. I just wasn't afraid of getting close to happiness anymore. I only believed one thing. No matter how many times the cold has buried something real, spring always comes again, and the flowers bloom just the same. The end.
This is Listening Novel. We appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed today's story, please like and subscribe for more stories, and stay tuned for what's next.